So, hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Spotlight on the Social Sciences. My name is Natalie Figueroa, and I use she, her pronouns. I am one of the admissions counselors here at the office, as well as an alum, class of 2018, with a degree in International and Global Studies, with a focus in Latin America and a minor in linguistics. Our Wednesday webinar series highlights a particular topic each week, and we welcome your questions today, specifically on studying the social sciences at Middlebury College. If you are interested in more general information regarding the college and our virtual offerings, I will be providing a link below in the chat feature for more general information that you may be interested in finding. In our time here today, our panelists will introduce themselves and speak on their experiences with the social sciences. Wonderful panelists here tonight representing both the faculty and student perspective of the social sciences. After their introductions, we will open the floor up for question and answers submitted by you all, the attendees. As we get started here tonight, I would like to take the time to acknowledge the fact that Middlebury College sits upon land that belonged to the Abenaki people. We honor their connection to these regions, to these lands and waters, and to the history, past, present, and future. I'd also like to take the time to acknowledge and denounce the inexcusable violence towards the Black community in this country. As we reckon with our nation's history, Middlebury College recognizes the continuous work needed in the journey towards anti-racism on an institutional and communal level. And lastly, we are in a virtual realm here today due to the COVID-19 global pandemic, which has disproportionately affected Black and Indigenous folks, as well as communities of color. The global pandemic has drastically altered many realms of our day-to-day lives, and at this moment, seeing that direct impact on the college search and application process. So we at the admissions office appreciate y'all taking the time to be with us here today. Our Spotlight on the Social Sciences webinar is especially near and dear to me as an alum whose major drew primarily from the social sciences, and a real full circle moment for me as well, considering one of my professors is actually in this webinar with us tonight. As I mentioned before, our group of panelists represents an array of academic departments and trajectories through the social sciences, and I'm thankful that they have joined us here to share their perspective with y'all. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Professor Jonathan Miller-Lane to get us started tonight. Professor?
Thank you, Natalie. So in my 3 minutes, I'm going to make 3 points and I'm going to leap right in and get us going, and then each one of us will do something slightly different. So I'm going to make 3 points. One is making sure we have a shared definition of the liberal arts. 2 is to share with you where I think education studies, which is my field, I'm a faculty member in education studies, where that fits in the social sciences, and then the interdisciplinary studies, why I think that is so important. So the first one with the liberal arts education, generally, right, we are talking about an undergraduate college education which students are required to sample from a broad array of courses and then select a major course of study in a single discipline. Having said that, if you're looking at colleges and curriculum around the country, you will see there is no agreement about how those two goals of broad sampling and a single focus should be done. There are many ways up the mountain and around the lake, even as there's a shared notion of liberal arts education as a broad sampling and a deep dive into one area. So that's just a shared opening point 1. 2, I think in my field in education studies, we think of ourselves as existing in the crossroads of social science and the humanities. And crossroads is a reference to Bayo Komolafe, who's a great Nigerian author and writer. So, but the crossroads, right? The social sciences refers to the study that examine human societies and how we humans interact in our societies. So in the field of education, you can imagine that's pretty relevant. And here's 3 questions just to share with you that we sort of look at in this field. So how should we pay for schools in this country? Through local real estate taxes or through national taxes, the way we pay for interstate highways and the military? Which is the fairest way to do it? Who should decide how we organize schools? Local school boards or National Ministry of Education? which one of those systems ensures that the greatest number of students will have the best access to an excellent education? And then how do we educate students in a multicultural society for a multicultural democratic life? Each one of those questions is deeply informed by study in the social sciences. So in the field of education, we're deeply embedded in the areas that you're going to hear more about from all of our panelists tonight. But of course, if you're not interested in what it means to be humans, then it's probably not going into teaching is a bad idea, right? Because you need to be interested in humans if you're going to go into teaching. And for that, you of course need the humanities part of it, right? And the civil rights activist Ruby Sales uses that term humans instead of human being to emphasize the point that we are always and ever in relationship and in communities together. So if we care about what it means to be humans, right, the humanities play a critical part of that. And then the last piece I'll say about education studies is that, of course, the natural sciences play a role, because if you start studying how the brain works over there in what we call Bicentennial Hall on Middlebury campus, where the natural sciences are located, you learn a lot of interesting things about how you might organize a learning environment that ensures more students thrive. So that learning how the brain works and how we learn, that's useful. But if you're interested in becoming a teacher and interested in education, you also need to figure out how this student is doing in this moment, in this school, in this community. And that's where the social sciences comes in. That's where the humanities comes in. So in our field in education studies, we are deeply embedded in the social sciences and also see ourselves as a crossroads of disciplines that come into play. Then the last point I'll make, which is really fun with this panelists we have here because we represent such a wonderful range of majors, is that this very mix of a broad sampling and a deep dive is what nearly every challenge we face in our society requires. Because in what single discipline does COVID-19 fit? Right? In what single discipline does climate collapse fit? Our opioid crisis, systemic injustice. The world does not stay in the disciplinary boundaries that we often think are fixed. Environmental studies, gender, sexuality, and feminist studies, American studies, international global studies, education studies. This is the world as we experience it today. And so the very idea of normal is gone with the evening tide, right? And we need to let it go. And we need to embrace the relentless discomfort of always and ever becoming. Last thing I'll say is to do this, we will need curious and engaged students who are willing to push their own boundaries so that Middlebury, we, as a result, will be capable of stretching our own. So that's my opening sort of three minutes for you. I look forward to hearing from everybody around the panel and to hearing some Q&A. Thanks, Natalie.
Thank you, Professor. And next, I'm going to pass it over to Professor Straub.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Natalie. Nice to see you again on Zoom. Jonathan, as an educator, always blows my mind thinking about what exactly I'm doing in the classroom. So thank you, Jonathan, for giving me something to think about. And thank you to the wonderful panelists for taking time out to talk about what we're doing here at Middlebury. I'm Sarah Straub. I'm originally from South Texas, and I'm now in my 13th year teaching at Middlebury College. This is the lucky 13. I teach in the political science department. I also teach in two big interdisciplinary departments that we have, programs, I should say, international and global studies and international politics and economics. Jonathan spoke about the sort of questions that you might want to pursue as a learner, as a professional, as a citizen, as a human, or as humans. We're really proud of the social sciences here at Middlebury, but one of the reasons that I chose to teach at a liberal arts college is that I firmly believe there is no one way of looking at the world. To complement what Jonathan said, I want to spend a few seconds just digging into what the social sciences are. Social sciences explore the vast array of human interactions. Political scientists like myself study power, the ability to get people to do things that they otherwise would not have done. Economists study exchange under conditions of scarcity. Sociologists and anthropologists both study culture. Sociologists are more concerned with social structures. Anthropologists are more interested in culture as meaning for people. Geographers study place and scale. Psychologists study human behavior and decision-making. All of the students here in this room can correct me if I've wholly miscategorized your major, please do so. But I'm trying to say that there are a lot of different lenses that you can bring to studying human behavior. So let's think about one question. I'm looking at this in my international political economy course on US-China trade relations. That was our reading today. Economists would ask who benefits, who pays the cost of tariffs. Political scientists would say, well, who sets the trade rules? Do some countries benefit more than others? Sociologists might ask, how does a culture of consumption in the United States fuel US trade deficits? Anthropologists might try to understand the relations of social support for migrants in China drawn into industrial production. Psychologists might say, if you ask policymakers about trade policy, does it affect their decision if you frame it as a threat or as an opportunity? All of those lenses are awesome. Not one of them is better for answering the questions. So as a social scientist, I love my lens and I love talking to Middlebury College students about it. But at the Liberal Arts College, you won't find the dominance of one approach over another. We're exploring many of them. Thanks.
Thank you, Professor. And I think that especially highlights the representation of students that we have on this panel and the different lenses and approaches that y'all have taken to your academic major, to your academic trajectory, really. And I'm excited to have you all share that. So first off, we're going to start with Derek.
Hello, everyone. My name is Derek Burt. I grew up in Hopewell, New Jersey, set to graduate this February 2021, which is exciting and scary. And I'm studying geography at Middlebury. So I was drawn to geography during my sophomore year. I was in a course called Spatial Thinking with Geographic Information Systems. For those of you who don't know, Geographic Information Systems, or GIS, is basically like a really powerful analytical mapping software. And at that point, I was still very undecided as to what I would be studying. I was thinking maybe I'd just go with English, which is a great department as well at Middlebury. But ultimately, I found that in this course, I was extremely challenged, but also like just amazed at some of the problems we were approaching. So for example, we were like detecting cell surface ranges on roads in Vermont and where you would be dropping your calls, or looking at the demographic makeup of census tracts that were, flooded in Houston after Hurricane Harvey, which was just, I didn't know how that you could look at these problems and to the degree and the level of specificity that we were looking at them in this course. And I was like, after that, even though, I really struggled and really had to work at it, I was kind of like hooked and decided that would be what I would study. Having completed the major and gone through all the courses, I would say I really appreciate how it approaches geography, the department, especially at Middlebury, approaches kind of social problems with the level, like a critical level that you would get in a humanities course, while still kind of providing you tangible research and software skills to look at those issues. I think it's a really nice intersection of kind of critical skills and tangible skills, not that they're mutually exclusive. And so, yeah, it's a really awesome department. It would be difficult to pick a favorite course. I think the entirety of my experience in the department is like, every single course was important. But I would say that cartographic design, if you've ever wondered how those like really pretty National Geographic maps get made in the articles, like you basically learn how to do that in a course. And like, it doesn't have to go that way, but I did try to kind of design my own National Geographic map for my final project, and it was really exciting. Yeah, and I would just like to finish by saying to prospective students, I think geography is often misunderstood as kind of like rote memorization of places on a map, but it's really, it's almost hard to describe because it's kind of like using a spatial thinking lens to understand environmental science, political science, anthropology, and there's even a bit of computer science in there, and I probably missed some, but it is, I had no idea Middlebury had a geography department, and I'm so glad that I found it because I feel like it does just like fit perfectly for me. And yeah, I think that's about it, but geography. It's a great department.
Thanks so much, Derek. And as our panelists are introducing themselves, attendees are able to submit questions in the Q&A box feature on the bottom of your screens on the Zoom dashboard. So next up is Brian.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brian. I grew up in Houston, Texas, and I am currently scheduled to graduate May of 2022. And I am an anthropology major and a global health minor. I guess what drew me into anthropology, coming into Middlebury, I had no idea what anthropology was. I knew I wanted to be pre-med, but I also knew that I wasn't particularly turned on by the hard STEM sciences. And coming into Middlebury, it was a super cool experience to be able to major in something in the humanities or social science and also be able to be pre-med. And what drew me into anthropology was actually an archaeology class, Intro to Archaeology with Professor James Fitzsimmons. And it really kind of changed my perspective on archaeology and anthropology as a whole. I kind of came into the class thinking I was going to learn about Indiana Jones, and which we kind of did a little bit of. We did throw spears at one point, which was probably my most memorable experience in that class. But really, like later on, I decided to take more anthropology classes just because of how much I enjoyed my experience with Professor Fitzsimmons. And I'm about halfway through the major, so I don't know, I guess, as much as maybe some of the older students on this panel, but if I had to narrow my favorite class down that I've taken in the anthropology department, it would probably be medical anthropology with Professor Kristen Bright, just because it blended kind of my two passions with going into medicine and anthropology together. And it was kind of a very unique experience to be able to look at health and medicine through an anthropological lens instead of a strictly more STEM related research kind of way. And it was also particularly interesting because I actually got to take the class last spring during the start of the global pandemic, and being able to look at that through the anthropological lens was definitely super interesting. And I mean, outside of academics, I'm also on the men's swim team. So being able to balance being on the pre-med, pre-health track, the social sciences with my anthropology major, and being a part of athletics was the main reason that drew me to Middlebury. And I really hope you guys definitely take a good look at Middlebury, and hopefully we're what you're looking for in a school. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. I am very glad that Professor Fitzsimmons still does the spear throwing portion of his archaeology classes. I was actually drawn to many of my anthropology courses as well because of Professor Fitzsimmons, so it's nice to see that wonderful influence still carrying on in the years after, in the years to follow. So next up, I'm going to invite Chima to introduce herself.
Hi everyone, my name is Chima Dimba. I'm a senior, so I'll be graduating in the spring, and I'm from Rochester, New York, and majoring in psychology. So I was drawn to psychology because actually my intro class, my professor is also an associate professor in neuroscience, and so I thought she did a really nice job of blending human behavior with the brain and how both are intrinsically connected, interconnected we are in our responses to the environment, to our genetic makeup, to the people around us, and how we can actually change or alter or shift our behaviors in our brains through practice, through different routines. And something about Middlebury that I liked is that you can do undergraduate research. And so I took my interest in mindfulness and emotions and did some independent work as a junior. And now as a senior, I'm doing my thesis on mindfulness and its effects on compassion. And so being able to take the work you're learning in class, applying it to yourself, and then looking at the literature and the scientific evidence behind it, just seeing how people behave, why they behave in certain ways was really fascinating. And you get a lot of support in this department as well as I'm sure in other departments to continue your interests and if you want, do independent work on it. So, yeah.
Thank you, Chima. Next up is Bochu.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bochu Ding. I'm a senior, which means that I'll graduate this spring, hopefully. I'm from San Francisco, California, but also spent some time in Beijing. I am a sociology, anthropology, and economics double major. Sociology and anthropology used to be one department, and I declared my major right before it split into two. So I'm kind of the last of my kind. I actually came to Middlebury thinking that I would be an IP&E, International Politics and Economics major. And I can actually identify the exact moment when I decided that political science wasn't for me. It was midway through the Republic when Plato started talking about the communism of children. Sorry, Professor Dry, wherever you are. And I was actually going to be just an econ major for a really long time. And I randomly couldn't get into one of my classes. So I just took this random 200 level anthropology class with Professor Sheridan. It was called African Anthropology. And I felt like I came out of that class like a different person. It just completely changed the way that I thought about the world and kind of it gave me a new lens of analysis. And I really love that economics and sociology and anthropology give me very different lenses of analysis. I'm a senior, which means that I'm working on a thesis. And for my senior thesis, I'm investigating how people across the US have different definitions of capitalism and why those different working definitions and different interpretations of capitalism makes it so that we can't have public discourse about capitalism because people fundamentally aren't talking about the same things. Outside of academics, I do a little bit of rowing for the men's crew team. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Middlebury campus, and I'm one of the social entrepreneurship fellows at the college. I'm using some of that funding to kind of start a business with two of my friends, and we're helping social enterprises do marketing through storytelling. So juggling a few random kind of things. Yeah.
Love it. Thank you. And Hajara.
Hello, I am Hajara, class of 21. Also, I'm going to graduate hopefully in May of next year. And yeah, so I am an economics and math double major, so I'm between social sciences and STEM. Places I call home. I'm from Niger, West Africa, but I've lived my 2 years of high school in an international school in Bosnia and Herzegovina before coming to Mid. So why I chose econ particularly, I just took an intro to micro econ class with an amazing professor called Jessica Holmes, and she just put how econ can be how we can use econ for so many different things. Then econ is just not finance, and she showed it in different examples just in an intro class, and I was very interested and I decided to pursue a lot of econ classes. But my favorite econ class was actually an econ class that I took last semester with another professor, Professor Biker. It was about economics and gender and how we think of gender, traditionally gender-based roles in economics terms, especially when it comes to women and the care they provide and how they're not usually counted in economics terms. So yeah, so I really loved my class. I have also taken a class prior to this. It's a more quantitative based class. It's a regression class with her. So I love her. So yeah, besides academics, I've done a research position last summer with Professor Biker again. We were looking about how health impacts people living next to mines in South Africa. So I was helping them gathering a lot of data, cleaning a lot of data to start their project on mine in South Africa. That's what I did last summer. Besides academics, I'm also doing a thesis, sorry. I'm doing a thesis in econ with another professor, and I'm looking at how gender impacts some economic achievement of people in developing countries. I'm looking particularly at either abortion or child marriage. Those are my two topics. I haven't decided which one yet, so I have some time. And finally, besides my double majors, I am investing in a lot of different activities at Mid. I am a social entrepreneurship fellow with BOCHU. I am a bold woman leader with other women. I used to be on the Middlebury Debate Society, but I kind of stepped back for my last year. Yeah, so I've done a lot of different things around campus.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. And now we are going to open it up for some generic questions. But before I do that, I want to put up a slide for the contact information of every panelist here who have graciously offered their ability to answer any specific questions that folks will have for them. So let me take one moment to do that.